Hello everyone. Welcome back to Reddit Night, your favorite Reddit reading channel. Today we are back on our /askreddit. Don't forget to like and subscribe. People no longer bound by their NDA, what can you now disclose? I found pallets of candy in the top of the racks that was behind displays and furniture in my Walmart. One pallet had been the home of a mother rat and her brood. Did you know rats don't like raisins but will eat the chocolate off and leave the raisins in a pile? Management decided to put the unopened bags of candy on sale in the clearance aisle instead of disposing the rat-infested pallet. Uber was planning to make their own Google Street View for use in the app to better help drivers find riders and to map the world for driverless car technology. But they were going to use Uber drivers to capture the images for the Street View. The plan was to mail out inexpensive GoPro-like devices that magnetically attach to the roof of the drivers' cars. Each would have SD cards that could be mailed back to Uber. Routes would be generated and then the drivers could accept them in the app and get paid. This plan fell through quickly and Uber eventually sources this data from third parties and ultimately abandoned their in-house driverless car ambitions. Also, Microsoft developed a really cool backpack-mounted camera that was going to be used for something like Google Street View. The plan was to take it into pedestrian-only areas so you could get imagery indoors like malls and in walking spots. The United States military snatched up the entire project for their own use and that product was never released or even announced to consumers. My NDA is still in effect, but I've covered my liability. A few years, with a previous insurance company I worked for, we fired an employee who had a nasty personality. Imagine a toxic gamer working in a call center and that would be this guy. He had been the son, or grandson, of one of the board members so he was untouchable. When his relative on the board got voted out, it was finally time for this little troll to be fired. His supervisor took him to a conference room to let him know he was fired and he was escorted from the building by security. As the HR manager, I was tasked with clearing his desk and separating his property from company property. That was when I found a heavily used 5 inches by 8 inches notepad on his desk that had a list of names. Next to each name was a mailing addresses and details about how this ex-employee planned to harm these people. I did some digging and found they were all current or former clients of the company and that they all had filed complaints against this monster. It was a hit list. I notified the board after I notified the police. The shit was arrested on unrelated drug and assault charges. The prosecutor now had to consider charging this guy for his hit list. Since she couldn't convince a judge there was a strong enough case, the prosecutor decided to impanel a grand jury. Since I was the individual who found the notepad, I was subpoenaed to confirm its provenance. Considering any other employee could have walked by and deposited this list on this asshole's desk, the grand jury decided to not move ahead to a trial. For the drug and assault charges, the former employee was sentenced to 16 years in prison. As a witness, I wasn't issued a gag order regarding the grand jury investigation. However, my work did order me to sign an NDA to protect the clients who were on that hit list. It was really just a cover-up that they were in any danger. I signed and then quit as soon as I got a job offer with another company. Those bastards on the board cared more about their profit margin and public image than they did about people's lives. If they figure out I'm violating that NDA, there's not much they can do. They know antagonizing me with a lawsuit would only lead to me telling the media, naming the company and ruining their public image. Edit, for clarification, the reason I signed the NDA was because I needed access to my office computer so I could look up the most recent contact information the company had for the people targeted on the hit list. I then gave that contact information to the prosecutor and her investigators. They just tracked down the last person this year and everyone is safe and accounted for. Spoiler alert if you are watching Teen Wolf and haven't gotten past episodes filmed in 2013, but the character of Allison Argent will be killed off. I was on set when that death was being discussed by cast members and was therefore required to sign an NDA that made me liable for something like $2 million in damages if I disclosed what I knew before the air date. Genre TV takes its spoilers seriously. I licked parts that went into a rocket that went into space. When I was tech before I was a vet, I worked in a lab that mostly tested animal meds on animals. Flea products, heartworm meds, etc. We had one product in testing for human medication though, which was an injection that supposedly was going to shorten the need to wear retainers after having braces. Of course, to test that, we needed animals that had worn braces long enough to replicate the changes that happen to human mouths that have had braces. What I'm getting at, was that some days it was my job to brush the mouths of like 50 beagles that all had braces and make sure the wires and brackets were in place and not causing any trauma to the lips or gingiva. The image of dozens of goofy little dogs clacking around me in circles around the lab super excited to see me, Doing their ridiculous beagle howls and flashing their braces as they did so will never leave my brain. I was Guy Fieri's body person for 6 months. This involved a lot of personal assistant shit, booking travel, air, Ubers in a pinch. Dude usually rode around in all black sedans, confirming what the advance teams did before Guy gets there. Most of my job was to handle his personal life when he was on the job. I had to sign 3 NDAs, but I'm only sharing what happened on the show. Guy gave me the impression he really didn't like what he did. Every morning he would say more of this bullshit even on so-called buffer days when we had an extra day before or after shooting and we had much of the day to ourselves. After 3 weeks of working with him, I figured out that Red Bulls are his binky. He's got some crazy ADHD, so the caffeine really didn't faze him. When he would get stressed out, he'd rage up a little, but then he'd completely shut down. A Red Bull just made him calm again. Guy does not remember the shit he says. People walk up to him and joke about Flavortown and he'd look at me after the fact and ask what's Flavortown? I had to remind him that he came up with that. My favorite was someone who went on a cruise. Apparently Carnival Cruise Lines has Guy's restaurants. I haven't been on a cruise yet, I'll find out sooner or later. Anyway, this fan loved the donkey sauce that he put on his burgers. Dude deadass didn't remember he did that. I had access to his computer and I saw recipe drafts for D-sauce. There were scores of events similar to this, every single time. Guy would have no idea. It sort of floors me that this guy influences so many people and he doesn't give a damn. He doesn't hate his fans, but he thinks interacting with people is a hassle. He legit doesn't understand why he's a celebrity, which boggles my mind how much effort he puts into his shtick. That one British chef who lied about cooking for the Queen has more cognizance about his fame than Guy. On a personal note, his family is full of sweethearts and I went above and beyond a few times to help them out. All I want to say about his fam. They're really nice people. Edit, correcting something inaccurate I said. Robert Irvine lied about cooking for 4 US presidents. Having a British knighthood. Owning a castle in Scotland. Helping make the wedding cake for Charles and Diana. Some other things. He never said he cooked for Queen Elizabeth II. That sinking feel regrets the error, considering it was over 13 years ago. Don't buy fine art except from a real dealer in a working gallery or a specific specialist, never just anywhere. The Caribbean/cruise industry is so full of vanity galleries, it's a scandal waiting to happen. I work for a moving company and we work with a women's shelter often enough. Typically women escaping abuse will have the shelter hire us to go in and get their belongings, sometimes with police company, and all the movers sign NDAs to protect the women from letting their new addresses slip. I can't disclose anything that interesting, but I want to take the opportunity to say, those people who jump at the slightest sound, the littlest surprise, be nice to them because you don't know whether they are just jumping naturally or if there's a reason they are like that now. Work in film VFX, so there's a lot. Let's see, the obvious is always that studio interface equals shit movie. I've never worked on a film and heard the studio wants to reshoot this sequence and ever had it turned out to be a good thing. But my guess is 99% of you know that. So a specific? There are so many good movies you'll never get to see because of studios. You'll see them but not until they're recut, reshot, and completely devoid of any artistic vision that created them. People point to the Snyder Cut or now Suicide Squad, and I can honestly tell you if a film is over 50 million and not directed by Scorsese, Nolan or Tarantino, it's created by a mindless collection of studio executives who don't know shit about filmmaking. Ad Astra was incredible and would have been such a tribute to 2001, but the studio saw it and got scared of James making a slow-paced science fiction film that made you think. They pulled it from him, made a mess when it was given to a second editor, because he wanted to add 15 million in new VFX shots, then given back to James to fix but with this new direction. Woman in the Window was interesting and while not a great thriller, something that was decent and thought-provoking. Think Shutter Island. But 3 test audiences in New Jersey, a second distribution company, Fox to Disney, and a second director for massive reshoots created the shit show that was unloaded on Netflix. There are several big-time films that'll never see the light of day because the studio bought them and is sitting on their release. Things you've never heard of with great directors and casts because the studio doesn't want to be associated with it for whatever reason. Weinstein was notorious for this, but several other producers have done the same. What's going on with Scarlett Johansson right now is way too common for everyone in the industry. Only difference is she's above being blackballed and has the money to pay for the lawyers needed to defend her. Finally, just know if you go to a film and say how did they not fix that shot, realize the director wanted to, we just didn't get approval, or who comes up with this shit, it probably wasn't shit until the studio got involved. Harley Davidson is producing an all-electric motorcycle. It's called the Livewire. It sounds like a jet engine, even though it could be totally silent. 120 plus miles per battery. At the time I was working on it, the battery would only last like 60-ish miles, and the sound has changed once or twice since too. I want one. Edit, yes, I know they've been out for a while now. That's why the NDA expired. That's it for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.